झाले झाले नाही ते प्रिंट काढल्यानंतर ते ओळखलं मी परत त्याने राईटअप केलं
Good morning. We will just start with our next session. So for our next session, we have a talk on simulation of time series using a non-Gaussian model by Dr. Kokila Ramesh. It's my immense pleasure to introduce the speaker, Dr. Kokila Ramesh. Dr. Kokila Ramesh is working as an assistant professor in Department of Mathematics, School of Engineering and Technology, Jain deemed to be University. She has completed a PhD in mathematics from Jain University, Karnataka. Her research interest is in new statistical approach in modeling and forecasting of Indian rainfall time series. Some of her notable publications are Forecasting of Karnataka monsoon rainfall for the year 2011, Prediction of Indian summer monsoon rainfall for 2013 based on past rainfall data, and forecasting Indian monsoon rainfall including within year seasonal variability. And she has authored some books and books chapters. The notable one are, she has written a book titled Engineering Mathematics 2 by Sunstar publication in 2015. And she has also written a book chapter titled Impact of COVID-19 in India and its metro cities, a statistical approach, in the book of Mathematical Analysis for Transmissions of COVID-19. On behalf of management and participant, I welcome you, Dr. Kokila Ramesh, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a good introduction.
Welcome, Dr. Kokila.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Most welcome for this session.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good morning to all the participants. Time series is one such topic which many people would be interested in, but the thing is, I should say they're scared of talking about the methods which are there in the time series because it is very much uncertain. And when I say time series, it can include many the real-time examples such as natural disasters, and we can have natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and then rainfall. Many other such landslides data, and then many other such data we can always consider. There are certain works which are happening even in the health sector, such as the people with the diabetes, like with time, how the variations are happening to the patients, and then considering that data and analyzing, and then modeling that, and then forecasting what can happen and what kind of food they can take so that they can reduce their the diabetes quotient. All the such works are happening. But the thing is, most of the things which are happening, they are the forecasting or the prediction. So to a certain extent, because since it is natural and since it is based on the human behavior or the atmospheric behaviors, what happens is they might not come to the efficiency which actually expected. So that is the reason many people are not undertaking the work in time series analysis. So there are many books which actually gives the existing models such as the ARMA models, ARIMA models, autoregressive models, and so on. But again, it changes with respect to time. So that is why I thought this particular method, what I'm talking about, might interest people who are carrying their research, and then who are interested in time series analysis can take it up. Can I have can we have a kind of discussion? Can I have the participants who are working on the time series analysis, if somebody is working on? I've kept my chat box open so that I can get the inputs if somebody is working on. Okay. It will be easy for me to take it forward if I get the input. Okay. Yeah, I'll try to make it as interesting as possible because many people would be interested in time series analysis, as I said. Yeah. So today's topic is simulation of time series using a non-Gaussian model. Why specifically I'm mentioning it as a non-Gaussian model? The reason is the most of the data what we collect, whether it is time series or the non-time series data, we tend to get into the conclusion that it is a Gaussian distribution. The probability distribution of the data is a Gaussian distribution, and take it for that is what the many of the Indian meteorological departments who have worked on the probabilistic models on the rainfall, they have come to the conclusion. They have said that since the values or the parameters which are very much near to the Gaussian distributions, they've assumed it to be Gaussian, and they have moved forward. Since the Gaussian distribution is the deviation from the mean, most of the predictions, what happens is, if we assume it to be Gaussian, the predictions would be somewhere near the mean. So it won't go beyond the mean. So most of the times it comes as the conclusion as the average value. That is the reason we say that, we conclude that it may not be Gaussian, so it might be non-Gaussian. So there are certain methods which using which we can find out whether it is a Gaussian process or the non-Gaussian process, whether it is a time series model or a non-time series model. Identifying whether it's a Gaussian thing or a non-Gaussian thing is very much important. So to do that, what I have done is I have taken, as I said, the rainfall data is very much close to me. So I thought that itself as an example I will consider, and I will show you how it can be shown to be a non-Gaussian process. So when do we call a series as a time series? We call series as a time series based on the fact that the data which evolves with respect to time. So it can be with respect to daily data, or it can be with respect to monthly data, or it can be with respect to yearly data, or it can be with respect to decadal data. So anything with respect to time, if the data evolves, we call it as a time series. So that time series, when the time is involved, we call it as a process because it is happening with respect to time. So when time is involved, the process or the identification of the model becomes difficult. If the time is not involved, then we are just dealing with the numbers. So the numbers, distribution of the numbers and the statistical model of the numbers and the probabilistic model of the numbers will not be that difficult. When the time is involved, we have to always consider with respect to time, the simulation will become difficult. That is why I have considered the simulation of time series using a non-Gaussian model. So I'm specifically mentioning it as a non-Gaussian model. I have not mentioned here rainfall time series because this model, what I'm going to discuss today, need not be for the rainfall process. It can be for any process which evolves with respect to time. So that is the reason I have given a simulation of time series using a non-Gaussian model. As I said, I'm taking rainfall series as an example, and I'm showing you how that happens. So this can be applied to any other time series as well. So good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Kokila Ramesh. I'm heading the Department of Mathematics in Jain deemed to be University in Faculty of Engineering and Technology. So today's topic is simulation of time series using a non-Gaussian model. So let me start with what are the contents which I'm going to discuss it today. The first is I'll give you a brief introduction on this non-Gaussian model, followed by the data which I have considered for showing you this non-Gaussian model, and then preliminary data analysis. When we collect any data, pre-processing the data and post-processing the data is very much important. So in between, this modeling and the forecasting comes into picture. So pre-processing is at most important, and post-processing is based on what kind of pre-analysis you have done on the data. Then methodology. So what method I have applied, that what non-Gaussian method I have applied, that in detail I'm going to discuss. And then modeling, then simulation of the same, whatever model I have taken into consideration, how to do the simulation of the same with respect to time. As I said, simulation with respect to time doing is very much important because it doesn't happen so easily. So then I'll show you the results, how it gets compared with the actual data, and then the conclusion. So as I said, anything which evolves with respect to time is time series. So natural disasters such as heavy rainfall resulting in floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, etc., belong to the category of non-Gaussian time series. So I have given the conclusion here, non-Gaussian time series, but I will show you how it becomes a non-Gaussian time series. It's important, as I said, pre-processing. These things are important because the Indian economy and the agriculture is completely based on these floods and earthquakes and tsunamis and so on. So mitigation of such disasters in the form of modeling. Modeling and forecasting, when I say, suppose this particular monsoon, the 2020 monsoon, if we know well in advance what amount of rainfall is coming, at least we can intimate the agricultural sector that this amount of rainfall is going to occur. If there's something called as normal rainfall, there's something called as below normal rainfall, and there's something called as above normal rainfall. So if we are able to tell them through the forecast that this year it is going to be normal rainfall, you might have seen in the newspapers every year, the IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, gives a forecast in the newspaper saying that this year there will be a normal rainfall. So how do you think that it has been produced? It is based on these models what we are developing. So we are in connection with the Indian Meteorological Department, and we give our forecast to them so that they can decide upon whether it is normal or above normal or below normal. So if we are able to say well before the monsoon occurrence what amount of rainfall is happening, what is the nature of the rainfall is happening, then it will be a great impact on the Indian economy and also the agricultural sector. They can decide upon what crops to be load and such things. So it is commonly assumed that rainfall time series is Gaussian in nature. As I said, the initial picture, so they consider the data, they put the probability distribution, it looks like a bell curve, because there are some incidents where the below rainfall occurs, and there are some incidents where above rainfall occurs. There are some major incidents where the normal rainfall occurs. So if that is the case, it fits into the bell curve. Just fitting into the bell curve is not enough. So, but is it really Gaussian? Is it really normal? Is what we have to discuss about. So that is why it's commonly assumed that the rainfall time series is Gaussian. Any time series for that matter, if you have a huge data set, then when you put a probability distribution for such data, so usually the assumption is it is Gaussian in nature. Because when I say, for example, so I'm considering the non-Gaussian time series, Gaussian or time series, or I can say it is not a time series. It's just the numbers frequency distribution, let us assume. When we consider any particular semester students' marks, so when we put a probability distribution of students' marks in a particular subject, so we tend to feel that there are some students who perform below average, there are some students who perform above average, and the major chunk comes in the average. So we assume that it is normal. Okay. So, but actually it might not be. So the further processing of the data is the utmost important thing. So we have to look into whether actually it is normal or not. So is it evenly spread about the normal? That is what we have to check about. Is the skewness 0? Is the kurtosis exactly 3? Wickedness is there. So all those details we need to check. So, but the detailed analysis of the same will lead to the fact that it is non-Gaussian. As I said, detailed analysis is important. That is called pre-processing the data. So, but we assume that since it looks like a bell curve, and we proceed further and we use the Gaussian assumption and we try to forecast it, it will never give you the proper results. Okay, so we should have a proper proof that it is Gaussian in nature. So that is why a non-Gaussian model has to be implemented for the time series for simulation of the same. So not the Gaussian time series, it's a non-Gaussian time series which is required. So that simulation has to be done. So here in this case, we have done an attempt which is very much simple. At the same time, it uses the properties of the Gaussian process, and it becomes the non-Gaussian process over time. So I'll repeat it. It is a new non-Gaussian model we have developed in this case, where it uses the properties of the Gaussian model, but at the same time, it simulates the non-Gaussian process and it gives you the accurate results. That is what we have planned. So for this, major mathematical transformations and all is not required. A simple normal calculation is required, which becomes a non-Gaussian model. Okay, so that is what I'm going to discuss. This particular method can be tried by anyone to any time series. So there are two major sources. The data which I have considered had to be discussed. So that is why I thought, so let me give you the glimpse of the data where I have collected from. So data has been collected from two different departments. One is Indian Meteorological Department, where they have rain gauge stations at different places in different districts, taluk level, and so on. So they have collected the rain gauge stations data, and they have process the data, and they have put monthly wise in the website, especially Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. In Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, data is freely available. So any one of you can take the data and they can process the data and they can check it. But whereas Indian Meteorological Department, they don't put in the website. We need to procure the data from them upon request. So certain GB of the data they will provide, not completely whatever you ask. We have to register ourselves, and then they will give you time to time whatever the data is required. But as I said, a certain size of the data is required. That upon request they will give that. Then this, as I said, where the data is freely available, that is www.tropmet.res.in. In this website, you can monthly data is available, monthly rainfall data is available, temperature data is available. So if somebody would be interested with respect to time, how the data looks like, and then pre-processing the data and then finding the model for that, they can always procure the data from this. So from 1871 to 2019, they have given the data there. So another 2 years, they're still processing the data. They're collecting the data from IMD and they're processing. So by the time they process and put, another 2 years will take time. So till 2019 only the data is available. So whereas IMD, as I said, it is based on the request. So there is another agency specifically for Karnataka that is called the Karnataka State Natural Disaster Monitoring Center. Here also, so we need to personally visit them. So we have to give them what is the reason for procuring the data. And then from the university, from the research center, if you give the letter to them, so they will provide with the data, but they should get convinced that is what it is. Otherwise, it is very expensive. There are smaller spatial scales. Smaller spatial scales in the sense, the whole India data together can be there. Or the India states, there are 26 states, so that 26 states are the states data they can provide, or otherwise district level data you can get it, or otherwise taluk level data you can procure. It is based upon what analysis you want to do. So based on that, you can put the request there in the KSNDMC. So they will give you the data. Again, with proper documentation, if you go, they will provide the data. So IMD has prepared, as I said, it is area weighted average rainfall data with the help of data obtained from the network of rain gauge stations spread all over the country. So all over the country, they have put the rain gauge stations based on that. It is not the satellite data what we have considered. It is the rain gauge stations data what we have considered. Again, what kind of data you are considering is important. It is through remote, this satellite data. Satellite data and this data will have a lot of variations. Trend may be same, but there might be a lot of variations in the data that needs to be checked. It is in terms of the statistics, I would say. So that needs to be checked, thoroughly analyzed, and then matched with the rain gauge stations data. And then we have to take a decision of which data to be considered. So but this rain gauge stations data is more accurate than satellite data. That is what has been my conclusion. So now, what IMD has done is, IMD has divided the whole India into 4 different regions, 4 broad regions, I should say. That is Northeast India, Northwest India, Central India, and South Peninsular India. So these are the 4 regions. So in the short form, it is called as NEIND, NWIND, CEIND, and then EIND. So I'll show you in the map in the next slide. So this is what is. If you look at the colors, different colors, this the upper part is called Northwest India. Okay, this pink color one is called Central India, and then this brown one is Northeast India, and the blue one is Peninsular India. So these are called the homogeneous regions. Why they call it as a homogeneous regions means the behavior will be similar in those. The numbers what you see here, if you see here, this is 4 broad regions of India as per IMD with subdivision numbers. This particular map I have got it from IMD website itself. This particular map with the numbers, these are the numbers which are called as subdivisions. Okay, the 4 broad regions and these many subdivisions you have. Okay, 36 subdivisions totally. So these 36 subdivisions, again, you can work on subdivisions level also. You can work on broad regions level also. As your, this is called spatial scale. The spatial scales means region wise when you consider. The whole region when you consider it is called one spatial scale. And subdivisions wise, if you consider, that is another spatial scale. So like that, the district level, if you consider, that is another spatial scale. Time scale means with different time scale, like the daily, monthly, yearly. So that is called time scale. So this is as per IMD. There is one more region, as I said, one more agency, which is called as Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. If you see, 3 broad regions of India as per IITM with subdivision numbers. So what is the difference between these two? Again, when you are trying to get the data for the same region from different sources, so in the pre-processing level, we need to compare them. So this applies to all kinds of data, whatever you procure from different agencies. So if you see, the difference is this line pattern, solid line pattern is there. No? This has been not considered for the study. The whole region, whole Indian region, when I'm considering, this region is neglected before considering the broad regions of the India in IITM. They say because this has huge variations that might lead to chaos in prediction. That is the reason they have left these. But whereas according to IMD, even if they include this, then only the prediction will be accurate. So as I said, different agencies will have different opinions. So that is the reason we should have the proper pre-processing of the data. So before doing anything. And the central part, apart from 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, remaining part is considered as the core monsoon region. Okay. So remaining colors I have showed. This is Northwest India. See, look at the Northwest India. Here, this is under core central region, whereas this particular 22 and 21 is in Northwest India for IITM. So there is a major difference between this and this. So what is the difference in terms of the statistics, in terms of the trends that we need to check? So that is what we are going to do first. See here. So first I have put the basic statistics. So it is from 1901 to 2000. So 100 years data. See here. So area I have considered, area for all the broad regions, and also one subdivision I've considered coastal Karnataka. For our curiosity whether that same model works for the subdivision level also or not, we wanted to check. That is the reason for coastal Karnataka we have considered one subdivision we have considered apart from the broad regions. These are the broad regions. If you look at it, so these are the regions and area in square kilometers. This again, this data is available in IITM and also IMD. This we have obtained from IMD. So this is LTA. LTA means long-term average. When I say average, when I say long-term average, there is a difference. When you have a 10 set of data, then also you can find average. There is 100 set of data, then also you can find the average. Why this is called long-term average? Because we're talking about long-term data. It is 100 years data we're talking about. That is why we have given the expression as long-term average. So this is the notation we are using. That is MR, that is mean with respect to R, that is rainfall, what we have considered in centimeter. So rainfall data is available in millimeter because that will be a huge number. We have converted into centimeter and we have considered their basic statistics. So this is long-term deviation. We could have called it as standard deviation, but we are calling it as long-term deviation because again, the reason is 100 years data we have procured. Then skewness, kurtosis. These two are the major ones which will tell you whether your data is a Gaussian process or a non-Gaussian process, or whether your time series is a Gaussian process or a non-Gaussian process. So when the skewness is exactly 0 or nearby 0, and kurtosis is exactly 3 or nearby 3, we call it as Gaussian process. Whereas if you look at it, Central India looks like Gaussian. Again, we will check whether it is Gaussian process or not. There's a slight variation in the pickedness. If you look at the other ones, there is a major value apart from 0. It is very much far away from the 0. So the skewness is not 0. Skewness, if the skewness is not 0, the data is not perfectly distributed about the mean. That is what it says. Okay. So it looks like bell curve, but it may not be Gaussian process. That is what it is talking about. Okay. So AIRF represents all India rainfall, then Central India, Northeast India, Northwest India, Peninsular India, and Coastal Canal. These are the examples what I've considered. Again, southwest monsoon rainfall means it is considered from June to September. June, July, August, September, we have added the rainfall, monthly rainfall data, and we have got one number. That is what is this southwest monsoon rainfall. So this is with respect to IITM. See the difference? There it was 32 lakhs something. Here it is 28 lakhs. Because they have left the topmost portion of the India. That is the reason it is there is a difference in the area. And then long-term average also some variation is there. So here also you can see the variation. Photos also you can see the variation. So comparison between that and this has to be done both with the basic statistics as well as the other different methods of finding the difference between the data. If you look at it, one example I have considered, see, this is core monsoon region. Other things, it is Northwest India, Northeast India, Peninsular India, and all Indian rainfall. Why I have put the bar is because I wanted to differentiate between the Indian Meteorological Department data and Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology data, but taken for the same duration, that is 1901 to 2000. See, this is the difference. So one particular station, that broad region, all India rainfall for southwest monsoon rainfall, for both sources, IMD as well as IITM, I have plotted here. If you look at it, all these analysis we have done in MATLAB. If you look at these, so this blue one is IITM data and red one is IMD data. I have put the legend here. So what is the difference? See here, area wise, this is the difference. Long-term average, approximately 4 centimeters difference is there. And then long-term average, if you see, it's nearly same. The coefficient of variation, okay? But when you look at the trend, we don't see any changes. More or less, it is the same. The trend is more or less, it's the same. What we are interested in is the peaks and the valleys. Peaks will tell you it is above normal rainfall, and valleys will tell you it is below normal rainfall. Otherwise, it is normal rainfall. Normal value is somewhere about 88.49. 88.49 means it's somewhere around here. For red one, that is IMD, okay? And 84.46, that is somewhere around 85, you can consider this is the normal value. If you look at this normal value, this particular peaks are considered to be above normal and valleys are considered to be below normal. So these are called extreme events. Extreme events means droughts and floods. There is a particular percentage given to the droughts and floods. Below 10% is considered to be the drought, and below 20% is considered to be extreme drought. And then about 10% is considered to be flood. And then about 20% normal is considered to be extreme flood. Okay. So there might be some disasters which is going to happen for a particular state or a city or a district or the whole India as well. So that is why pre-forecasting is very much important. So if you're able to do that, and if you're able to give that number well in advance, so that actually helps. So take measures for mitigating that. We may not completely eradicate, at least we will be able to mitigate that. That is what the whole idea is all about. So since the trend is same, Any data we can consider, either IMD data or IITM data we can consider. In between questions are allowed, Geeta ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it's allowed, ma'am.
Yeah, please check the chat box if in between, so if someone asks for the doubt, you can always tell me, you can remind me and I can answer their questions.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. So this is about pre-processing the data. So now we have considered two different sources of the data, and we have compared both the sources, and we could see that since the trend is same, any one of the data can be considered for modeling and forecasting. So this is how the data looks like. All India rainfall already I have shown you with IMD. This is all IMD data for 100 years. You can see the all India rainfall. If you see that it's random, it is not, there is no particular pattern appearing here. If there is a particular pattern, it is easy for us to predict because we can fit in the regular AR models and moving average models or any other models which are existing. But since it is uncertain, there are a lot of noise in this. So it is not easy for the existing models to be used. So this actually shows you the pattern, how the data looks like. So 3 different regions I've considered just to show how that looks like. This all India rainfall, the Central India rainfall, and Northwest India rainfall. So preliminary data analysis, as I was talking about, identifying whether it's a Gaussian process or a non-Gaussian process is important. But you directly, if you see the probability distribution of this, it looks like a Gaussian process. That is why I will not directly plot the probability distribution. Instead, I've considered this. Look at this. This is variation of long-term average and long-term deviation. So if it is a stationary process, there's something called a stationary and the non-stationary. Stationary means whose statistics such as basic statistics such as the average value, long-term average value, or the average value and the deviation value stay same or very much near to same over a period of time. But if you look at this, there's a lot of variation. So starting from this, I have found the moving average. If you see the moving average, there is a lot of variation. Initially, it is fine. You can cut off at this place after 20 lakhs. You can find out this. See, there's a lot of variation. It is not a single number or it's not saturated. Is it not? It is not saturating. If it is saturating, you would have had a straight line or very much near to straight line, but that is not happening here. But since the initially variation is more, if I cut off until here, we can easily see the lot of variation, fluctuations are there. So if it goes to a particular value and saturates at that point, and there is no variation, much variation, then we can say it is a stationary process. This is the visualization method which we can show people that the data which we have considered, or the time series which we have considered, or the process which we have considered is not a stationary process. So here, this blue one is the mean or MR, variation of long-term average over a period of time, is what we have considered. And this green one is the long-term deviation, that is sigma R. So over a period of time, what is happening to its variation? So this is for all India, a lot of fluctuations. Then this is for Central India, this is for Northwest India, and this is for Northeast India, and this is for Peninsular India. So since we are staying in Karnataka, Karnataka comes under Peninsular India, you can see a lot of fluctuations. And Bangalore is one particular place which like whole year we get the rainfall. We should say whole year we get the rainfall. So this was considered as a special case in the modeling and forecasting process for not considering to be a normal city wherein you get southwest monsoon rainfall only for a particular period of time. So in the last particular few months only, you could have seen that it was continuously raining. It is maybe because of the cyclone or effect, or because of something else, but we don't have certain period where we get the rainfall and after that it is going to stop. It doesn't happen like that. Whereas in north, a few places and some of the other places, it definitely the southwest monsoon is considered to be from June to September. But here it is not like that. That is why the fluctuations, you can see it is more, because Bangalore is also considered in this particular one. That is why fluctuations is more in this case. So this is another method what is this? What we can see here is omega, radians per year, and this P of omega. So this is basically a power spectral density. The power spectral density of the data which we have considered. Why power spectral density is important? The power spectral density is important because this will actually tells you, is there any dominant periods present in the data? That means 3 period, a 5 period, that means it's going to repeat itself after 3 period. If you consider the sinusoidal wave, there is a particular period for it. So after that period, it is going to repeat itself. So that kind of near periods are available in the data. It may not be the perfect period as sinusoidal wave or the cosine wave, whereas otherwise we can say near periods. Is there any near periods which are available in the data that can be procured from this power spectral? It's basically a Fourier transform of the data. So you can look at it. This is called white noise. This red one is called white noise. When I say white noise process, there is no variation in it. It's a flat spectrum. So there will be no dominant periods or something like that. It's a flat spectrum. So we have compared this spectrum with the flat spectrum, and these two are the confidence levels for that white spectrum. So when I consider these two as the confidence levels for that white spectrum, anything above this particular line and anything above this particular, anything below this particular line is considered as dominant periods. And these are the not below ones are so important for us because it hardly comes into picture, but the dominance ones like this period, this period, this period, this period. And see this is in omega, that is frequency, whereas I'm talking about period. So you know how to convert the frequency to period. So we can convert this frequency to period and we can obtain the dominant periods present in the data. So you can see everywhere it is the same or nearby periods which we are obtaining in. So based on that, you can decide that periods is the dominant period and you can put that into your forecasting picture. So that is where this pre-processing will help you. So these are the two preliminary data analysis what we have done. So which most of the people, they don't do it because they're not interested in this. Just by looking at the bell curve, they'll decide and then to be Gaussian, and they apply the Gaussian process simulation and they get the results which are very much near to the average value, which is actually not correct. So that is about pre-data analysis. So we have come to the methodology. So what, given the data, first is non-dimensionalization is important. Why do we non-dimensionalize? Because it is in terms of centimeters over time. Keeping the centimeters into picture will not help us. So, sorry, as I said, non-dimensionalizing the data is important. So this is what we have got in centimeters, RI in centimeters. So it is observed that rainfall as a random variable is non-Gaussian, which we proved it using the variation of long-term average and the long-term deviation with respect to time. And also with the, we found the dominant periods present in them. And also there's one more test called the Jagg-Barra test that I've mentioned here. The Jagg-Barra test will tell you with respect to skewness and kurtosis, whether the given data is non-Gaussian or Gaussian. Okay. So what we have done is we have used this Ri is equal to log Ri by Mr. Log transformation we have used. Non-dimensionalized Ri is in centimeters and mean value is in long-term mean value is in centimeters. So when we divide centimeters by centimeters, it gets non-dimensionalized. On that, we have applied log transformation. So the question is why log transformation? Sometimes if the process is not normal distribution, it tends to be log normal distribution. So whether that particular thing is present in there or not, that is one reason why we have applied log transformation. Not necessary that is transformation is required everywhere. Another one is when we use the standardization of the data, like normal standardization of the data, Ri minus Mr by sigma, that is which we use in normal distribution, standardizing standard normal variate. Standard normal variate is nothing but x minus m by sigma. Okay, that transformation can be used, but if we use that, what happens is your data gets restricted to minus m and plus m. Okay, actually normal distribution varies from minus infinity to plus infinity. But if you use x minus m by sigma, what happens is your data will get restricted to minus m to plus m. So we don't want our data to get restricted to -m to +m. That is the reason we have used log normal distribution or log transformation. Okay. So after that, some small mean was there, so that we have removed, and we made the standard deviation as 1 by using this transformation. Okay. So that mean was very small, so that's why we can use this transformation only for making mean 0 and standard deviation 1. So Jack-Barrat test was applied to check whether the system is a Gaussian process or non-Gaussian process. Anyway, it was proved visually that it is a non-Gaussian process, but still we wanted to verify using the specific test, so Jack-Barrat test. So this is available in MATLAB, readily available in MATLAB. The only thing is you have to give the skewness value and the kurtosis value, so it automatically gives you the value Jack-Barrat conclusion. So how we have done the work? So this was initially done by Dr. Arun Iyengar and Jaiswal in 1993, where what they've done is this x of t, which is a transformed series, they expressed with a finite number of terms, wherein the first term was a Gaussian process, and then the remaining terms was functions of the Gaussian process. I'll show you that here, how we have done. They had expressed it for the railway track dynamics, like when the rail goes on the tracks, the vibrations happens. So just to verify how the vibrations is happening, they have collected that data and they have applied this particular method for that, and worked out very well for them. That is the reason they have applied this method. That method we tried for the rainfall time series. This is how they have considered. So the representation is like this. X of t is equal to, this is the transformed process, that is non-dimensionalized process. We're expressing it as constant into some function of time, and plus some other constant into another function of time, and so on. So the question is, how many terms you're going to consider like this, and what are these phi's? These phi's are nothing but this. See, the first term is a constant term. Every process will have some constant term, so we have considered as a constant term. And then another second term is a Gaussian process. That is phi 1 of t is considered as u of t, where u is a Gaussian random process with 0 mean and unit standard deviation. That is 1 standard deviation. Okay. So now, if only first two terms are considered, that is only this constant term and the Gaussian process term is considered, then it is as good as a Gaussian model. But we have clearly showed that initially with the pre-processing of the data that it is non-Gaussian. So we can't consider only first two terms. So we need to consider more terms, which is functions of Gaussian terms. As I said initially, that this is a new kind of methodology wherein what we're doing is we are starting with the Gaussian process because we know the properties of the Gaussian process. To that, we are adding some more terms, which are the linear processes. Sorry, non-linear processes, non-linear functions of Gaussian processes. So automatically it becomes a non-Gaussian process. So along with this Gaussian process, we'll add 1, 2 more terms or 3 more terms based on how many terms we require. So we will make it as non-Gaussian. So if we consider only first 2 terms, what happens is this will become mean and this will become variance. With the autocorrelation function, Rxx of tau will be Ru of tau. That means the process which is required is equivalent to the Gaussian process. That means autocorrelation function of this and autocorrelation of function of this will be same. See here, this is X process and this is U process. So both will be same. That is not what we want. What we want is a non-Gaussian process. That is why we need to consider some more terms. To do that, what we're doing is the data is non-Gaussian as shown earlier with the pre-processing of the data. Therefore, in order to obtain non-Gaussianness, so remaining phi's are selected as polynomials in U. That means this phi 2, phi 3, phi 4, etc. We are considering that polynomials in U. Okay, how is that? Such that this phi I, phi j, that is phi 1 and phi 2 are uncorrelated to each other. Phi 3, phi 4 are uncorrelated to each other. Phi 3, phi 0 are uncorrelated to each other. That is what this says. So phi I, phi j are uncorrelated to each other, apart from I is equal to j. So this is called Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization procedure. So if the target audience are the mathematics teachers, in linear algebra, there is something called as Gram-Smith orthogonalization procedure. That is what we have applied. In the sense, at same time, this phi 1, if it is I is equal to j, they are correlated to each other. If I is not equal to j, they are uncorrelated to each other. When they're uncorrelated to each other, the product will become 0. That is, their normal product will become 0. So this is what we have done. So the reflection of the first 4 moments is possible. So to find out these constants, A0, A1, A2, etc., what we have done is we have used moment estimation. Moment estimation means using the mean value, because I know what is the mean of X. I know what is the variance of X. I know what is the skewness of X. And I know what is the kurtosis of X. So using those moments, we can identify our parameters. So that is why we need only the reflection of the first 4 moments. First 4 moments are, what are the first 4 moments? What we're talking about? The first is mean, then standard deviation, then skewness, and then the kurtosis. So those 4 moments, if we are able to reflect of the data, then our job is done. That is why I'll consider only the first 4 terms. See, phi 0 is equal to 1, that is a constant term. Phi 1 is equal to u, that we have considered as a Gaussian process. So phi 2 is considered to be C2 phi 0 plus C21 phi 1 with respect to these, and then plus one more term with the polynomial in u. It is u squared. U for constant term is done, u is done, then u squared. Similarly, phi 3 is considered to be phi 0, phi 1, phi 2, because that contains 1, u and u squared, and the last term is u cube term, and so on. Okay. So since I want only up to phi 3, so I've considered only up to phi 3 because I want to match only the first 4 moments of the data. That is mean, standard deviation or the variance, and then skewness, and then kurtosis. So first 3 terms I've considered. So based on what is your requirement, that many terms can be considered. So this is the orthogonality condition. What is the orthogonality condition? Phi I, phi j, inner product of phi I, phi j will be 0 if I is not equal to j, and it will be 1 if I is equal to j. So this orthogonality procedure we have applied, which is called as Gram-Smith orthogonalization procedure to finding the unknowns. What are those unknowns? C2 C21, C22, C30, C31, C32, and C33. So once we are done with all these constants, then we will use moments. That is, I know what are the first 4 moments of X. So using that, I'll find out A0, A1, A2, and A3. Okay. So this is the methodology what we have used. Geeta ma'am, I hope I am in this good pace. So if I'm slow or fast, please let me know based on the participants' feedback.
Sure, ma'am.
So yeah. So what we have done is now first phi 0 you know, phi 1 you know, that to find out this constant, I'll take the inner product of phi 0 and phi 2. When I take the inner product of phi 0 and phi 2, this will become 0. Phi 0 and phi 0 will become 1. Phi 0 and phi 1 will become 0. So you will be left out with only C2 and C22. U squared will be multiplied by phi 0. Okay. Similarly, I'll multiply this by phi 1 and I'll check what is the constant, C21 constant you will get. Similarly, I'll multiply this by phi 2 whole equation and then find out what is C22. So like that, I'll do the same procedure for phi 3 to find out C30, C31, C32, and C33. It's a simple procedure. I'm just using the inner product. So to find out these constants. So once you find out all these constants, this will turn out to be this. Phi 0 anyway, we know it is 1. Phi 1, it is, you know, it is u. And phi 2 will turn out to be 1 by square root of u squared minus 1. And phi 3 is 1 by root 6 u cube minus 3u. And since there is a particular pattern, I could write even what is phi 4. But I'm not interested in phi 4. But still, I thought I'll write down because there is a particular pattern. So what is that pattern? It turned out to be Hermite polynomials, normalized Hermite polynomials. So this is what the expression. So if you keep on giving the values, if you put 1, if you put 0, you will get 1. If you put 1, you will get u. If you put 2, you will get this expression. If you put 3, you will get this expression, and so on. So finally, we end up getting Hermite polynomials. Okay, so which is a good thing, which is an existing one. So once we get 5 ones, so we substitute it in this one. So this is what the expression. See, this is a Gaussian process, and this is non-linear Gaussian processes. So all put together, this x of t is no longer a Gaussian process. It is a non-Gaussian process now. So it is a simple procedure. Lot of calculations are involved in this. It's just the derivations what we have done, but it is not difficult derivations. All the derivations are very simple. So once we understand this, so we get this expression. Now in this, U is what we know, it is a Gaussian process. But what is A0? What is A1? What is A2? What is A3? We don't know. So we need to find that. To find that, I'll use moment estimation method. What is that moment estimation method? It is the mean, it is the variance, it is the skewness, or the third moment, and is the fourth moment what I'm using. Okay. So let us see. Now mean is 0 because it is, so we have subtracted by its mean and divided by its standard deviation. So mean is 0 and standard deviation is 1. And that means variance is also 1. So mean is, since mean is 0, so obviously your A0 will become 0. Okay. If you consider mean here, your A0 will become 0 because this was Gaussian process with 0 mean and standard variance. So all this mean of these processes will become 0. So A0 will become 0. Variance is 1. So this is 1. So I'll get A1 squared. When I find out x squared, inner product of x squared or whole of this, I'll get this expression. A1 squared plus A2 squared plus A3 squared. Similarly, if I find the third moment of this series, I'll get this. This has all been derived from this expression. Okay. If I take the inner product, since this is the Gaussian process, I know what is mean, I know what is standard deviation, I know what is skewness and what is kurtosis. For U of t, mean is 0, standard deviation is 1, skewness is 0, and kurtosis is 3. So using that, I'm finding it. So I got x squared, I got first expression, second expression, one more moment I'll use, that is skewness. This gives you skewness, actually this gives you kurtosis. So all those 3 moments I have used, and I've got 3 unknowns in 3 equations. 3 unknowns in 3. This gives you actually variance equation. This gives you actually third moment equation, and this is the fourth moment equation. So we have 3 equations in 3 unknowns, but is not linear. It's a non-linear equations what we are getting. That means since it's a non-linear equations, you will not get a unique solution. So you will get infinite solutions. But choosing from all those infinite solutions or the existing solutions, choosing the solution is important. We're talking about real structure. We're not talking about the complex structure. That is why you might get complex roots. You might get real roots. So we will consider only real roots. See, for finding the values of AIs, the first 4 moments of the time series x of t are used, and the equations are these, as I showed you in the previous slide. So when we solve these, multiple roots are available. For all the regions what we have considered, I have the roots, but I have shown only for one subdivision, that is coastal Karnataka. So these are the roots. These are the 2 only real roots available apart from all the other roots. I think this is the cubic equation, 4th degree equation, maximum 4th degree equation, sorry. Maximum 4th degree equations I'm getting. So since it's a 4th degree equation, do we have any other? No. Maximum 4 degree is 4. So since the maximum degree is 4, you're going to get 4 roots. Out of 4 roots, 2 roots were complex, the remaining 2 roots were real. So real roots are considered because we're talking about the real time picture. So if you look at these 2 real roots, which roots to be considered? That is the question. So which roots to be considered for that? Using these roots in the expression x of t, I'll plot with the actual data. See? With the first set of roots, this is sample histogram. Sample histogram means it is the probability distribution of the data. Okay? So that is seen here. These dots, this cross marks, what we see, that is the actual data. From the first roots, we are getting the solid line. From the second roots, we are getting this kind of picture. this nowhere matches with the sample histogram as we see. So since this nowhere matches with the sample histogram, we can't consider this routes to be the modeling routes. We should consider the one which actually accurately matches or near approximately matches with the sample histogram. So the solid line approximately matches with the sample histogram. So I'll consider routes 1 as the routes for my model. So this exercise has been done for all the regions. So one particular subdivision I have considered so that I can show you how exactly the non-Gaussian model matches with this. See, in this, what I have done is I've made the comparison with the sample histogram with the Gaussian distribution and the non-Gaussian distribution. If you look at this, this is the sample histogram, what you have, the dotted lines for all India level. And dotted line is that red dotted line is the Gaussian process or the Gaussian distribution. And this black one, which you see is the non-Gaussian model, which we have considered with the moment estimation method and with the other estimation that orthogonalization procedure, we have found the parameters. So if you see, it actually looks like a Gaussian model, but you see there is a variation. And also the extremes, these are the extremes. If you look at these extremes, these are the extreme events. This comes under 20% level and this above normal, and this comes at 20% below normal. These are extreme events, we say, extreme doubts and extreme floods. Okay, so here red doesn't match well, whereas the black matches very well. That is what we want. In the average part, this is the average part. This particular part is the average part. Whether it matches there or not, it does not matter. What matters is whether extreme events, whether it is able to catch. So it is able to catch. In all the cases, you can see that. Black one matches compared to the red one. Here, see the pickedness. This black one matches well compared to the red one. Here also the same thing. And extreme events also, it matches very well. So that is why our conclusion is the non-Gaussian model works better than the Gaussian model. So now modeling is done. We have compared with the actual data. It is found to be good. But whether we will be able to simulate it or not. Simulation that too with respect to time. Is it possible to perfectly time to time match is possible or not? Whether if you simulate it, whether it matches with the actual data or not is the question. So what we have done is the data initially we had 120 years data. So the whole 120 years data we have considered for the simulation purpose, but the only 100 years data we have considered for the modeling purpose. So simulation. So what we have done in simulation is we know this is what the expression is, and we got the A0 value, A1 value, A2 value, and A3 values with the moment estimation method. And you know, U is a Gaussian process. Now, the first job is, can we simulate the Gaussian process, which matches exactly with our after simulating a Gaussian process, when we put it here in place of U, whether we are going to get X of t or not. The first thing is how to simulate a Gaussian process. There are many methods to simulate a Gaussian process. No, Gaussian random variable, you can get it. Random numbers, Gaussian random numbers you can generate. But Gaussian process simulation is difficult. So what we have done is particular representation we have used. In this method, a particular representation has been used to generate random samples having the spectral density. What is that spectral density? That spectral density should match with the Gaussian process spectral density, which is there here. To do that, what we have done is, for each t, we know what is x. For each t, we know what is x. So using that x value, we obtain u of t. After getting for each t u of t, that is Gaussian process, actual Gaussian process, which we obtained from the data. Using that, we have found the spectral density for the data Gaussian process. Okay. So once we get the spectral density, we can use this expression. This is called Yamazaki and Shinizuka method. Using this expression, you can generate Gaussian random samples where your omega I is the random variables which are independent, identically distributed with probability density function P of omega. What is P of omega? It is a power spectral density, which is nothing but S of omega by sigma squared. Okay. And sigma squared is nothing but integral minus infinity to infinity S of omega d omega. Okay. So where phi I are identically independent random variables distributed with uniform density 1 by 2 pi in 0 to 2 pi. So with this set of values, we have simulated Gaussian process at time t. And that Gaussian process we substituted in this with the constant values what we have obtained for each region, and we got the process x of t. So we simulated x of t with the parameters estimated. So this is the simulation. Now, once we get the simulation, there might not be one such simulation based on different values of omega I and phi I. You might get different simulations. If you see, for each time, see 1900, you can see 1900, 1901. So 1901, it is not the same. Okay. What we are interested in, whether it gives you the same distribution or not, probability distribution or not. We're not interested in this simulation. We're interested in probability distribution simulation. So 10 such simulations I have shown you here, not 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 simulations, because that is what I could put it in the diagram. But we have done 100 such simulations, and we have taken the ensemble average of the same. So we've done the simulations and we have taken the ensemble average of the same. So when we take the ensemble average of this is what we get. So visual comparison, this is the visual comparison. If you look at it, this is the visual comparison. This may not completely give you the picture what we require. What we want to match is the basic statistics, that is mean, variance, skewness, and kurtosis, and the probability distribution. Whether those things are matched or not, we have to check. To match that, we have given here visual comparison of the actual data set, and the simulations may not depict any kind of result to discuss about its nature. One should be interested in knowing the statistical facts, comparisons such as LTA, LTD, and so on. So ensemble average means 100 such simulations we have done. So after taking 100 such simulations, we have taken the average of all those 100. We have put together all those simulations. That is called ensembling. Ensemble average we have taken. So after taking the simulations, the comparison of the first 4 moments with the actual data we have shown. See, all India rainfall. This is the long-term average. This is, I'm talking about Indian meteorological data. This is the long-term average. This is the standard deviation. This is the skewness. This is the kurtosis. This is for actual data. So once we get the ensemble average, we have converted into centimeters, and we see closely it is matching. It is 87.89, and the average here is 87.86. And the standard deviation is 88.90. It is 8.76. It's very closely matching. Skewness is minus 0.19. Here also minus. See, the signs are matching. Minus 0.19, minus 0.17. And kurtosis is 2.63 or 2.64, I should say. And here 2.71. Okay. It's very much closely matching all the 4 moments. That is what we wanted finally. So not only the visual matching is important, even the moments matching is important. This is for the observed data, and this is for the moments of ensemble average of 100 such simulations. So you can see Central India 96.50. Here it is 96.55, 12.74, 12.68, 0.03, 0.02, and 2.73, and 2.69. And Northwest India, similarly, you can see the match. Northeast India, see, you can see the match. Even though Northeast India behaves, or Northwest India behaves abruptly, there also the match is very much similar. Okay. Here, Peninsular India and Northwest India is considered to be behaving very abruptly. The reason behind it is there are certain places or the cities or the district levels wherein the data is not normal in nature. It is very much chaotic in nature. So even though we have added that particular city or the district to that particular broad region, that is Northwest India and Peninsular India, still that variation has been considered and we are getting the good results. That is what finally we wanted. So it is sufficing the method. So we're not using the major transformations here. A very simple result we have used, where the Gram-Smith automation procedure and moment estimation for finding the constants. That's it. So we have got the good results and Gaussian process simulation. So the power spectral density is also matching. See, the blue one is the actual one and red one is the simulated one. So blue one, the red one, and are matching. So even the power spectral density, why is power spectral densities have to match? Whether the same the periodicities are still existing or not, we need to check. It is existing. It is matching. We are not about, we don't want how much it is matching. Whether the peaks are available or not, that is important for us. See, Northeast India, it is behaving abruptly. There we could not completely get it. But yes, with a few more moments adding to that, we can exactly match the power spectral densities. That is what we want finally. Okay. Lastly, this the probability distribution matching. If we look at the probability distribution, this is about the probability distribution. See, the overall picture it is matching. This is actual data distribution. This is the simulation one, what I'm talking about. The simulated one, not the modeled one. Modeled one actually matches. Modeled one I have shown you. This red one is the ensemble average of 100 simulations what we had considered. So look at the extremes, your extremes. The average ones we're not bothered about. We're bothered about the extremes. So in the extremes, we could see it is matching. See here, this particular part, this one. See, there's a variation also it's showing here. See, these extremes are important for us. So if it is able to match with the extremes, nothing else we want. So we can easily use this as a method to simulate the non-Gaussian process or the rainfall process. Okay. So what is my conclusion? The conclusion is very much simple. The model developed here, I have considered this is a time series. As I said, this particular method can be applied for any time series you consider. Please check, because mostly it is non-Gaussian in nature. If it's Gaussian in nature, we don't need any other method. You can use Gaussian process itself to simulate your data. But if it's a non-Gaussian process, it will have some properties of the Gaussian process, which can be used as a method or which can be used as the equation in your non-Gaussian process to use the properties of the Gaussian process and then make it as non-Gaussian process. That is what we have done. The example what I've considered for the time series is the Indian rainfall data. Okay, so 4 broad regions and 1 subdivision we have considered here, that non-Gaussian model to prepare the non-Gaussian model with the help of Gaussian model. Okay, so what is the advantage? The advantage of this model is that the properties of Gaussian process, as I discussed. So the properties of Gaussian process is used to identify the properties of the non-Gaussian model, because that as a polynomial we have used in the model to make use of all the properties of the non-Gaussian model. Okay. Third thing is, by inverting a polynomial, in the sense, what we did, we had got the expression x of t is equal to a0 into a0 plus a1 into u plus a2 into a2 by root 2 into u squared minus 1 and so on. Okay, so for each value of x, that is the data which we have, we found each value of u. That means we inverted the polynomial. By inverting the polynomial, what we did is the Gaussian process is found. Why we found the Gaussian exact Gaussian process? Because we wanted to take the exact power spectral density. PSD means power spectral density. Power spectral density, which is used for simulating the Gaussian process. So if we know the properties of PSD, that is power spectral density of the Gaussian process, which is there in the data, it will be easy for us to simulate the non-Gaussian process. So one such simulation is not enough. As I said, with one simulation, you can see only the trend, but 100 such simulations we have to take, we have to analyze, we have to take the ensemble average. So if we take the ensemble average, we get the correct picture. So 100 such simulations. Why only 100? Not necessary. You can take more simulations also. You can take 1,000 simulations and you can take the ensemble average, but still you get the same result. Okay, because some of the simulations are going to repeat itself. So the 100 such simulations are enough to see the nature. So 100 such simulations are developed. Each simulation is a non-Gaussian process, as we discussed. So ensemble average of 100 such simulations is found to compare the distribution with the observed data. So we showed how did we compare with the actual data. So we plotted the histogram, that is the dots in terms of cross. We plotted the histogram, then the Gaussian process, and then the non-Gaussian process. When we did that, we could see the non-Gaussian process is compared very well compared to the Gaussian process. So when we do that, we can clearly say that non-Gaussian process or the non-Gaussian model is required for time series such as rainfall or any natural time disaster time series, okay, like tsunamis or the earthquakes or any other such railway track data and so on. Okay. That's why ensemble average is important for the data distribution. Okay, so this where it is going to be helpful. So this is going to be helpful. We are still in the first step. What we are thinking is, in the next step is, once we get the underlying probability distribution structure, we can find out next step, like using the conditional density, what can be the next event. So given the event that the previous event is a flood event, can we find out the next event is a flood event or the normal year, normal rainfall year? Or given that the previous year is a drought year, can it be the next year be the drought year? Or given that the previous year is a normal year, whether we are going to get a drought or a flood or a normal year. That is what we can find out from this. So that step is still pending from our end. So we're still in under the process. So this method can be further used as a much smaller scale. So I have used for the broad regions. For smaller spatial scales, the subdivision level, only one subdivision I considered. So since it is working for that, we can apply it for the other subdivisions as well. So you can use it for the time scales also, different time scales such as monthly level data, daily data, and other characteristics. So that we can see whether this model is working or not. I can say that it might work. I cannot say that it will work, but we can try finding the parameters according to what parameters they have. It might work. So that is our thing that we have to consider the data, and we can check it, pre-process the data properly, and then use the parameter estimation. Parameter estimation is the utmost key. So once you estimate the parameters in a correct way, then definitely it will work. So I think it is work. And not only that, so you can do forecasting as well using this method. That's it from my side. If you have any questions, I would be happy to help you. Archie ma'am? Radha Gupta ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Geeta ma'am? Yes. If any queries are there from the audiences, I would be happy. Actually, I wanted to give the hands-on experience, but 1.5 hours is not enough to give the hands-on experience for this. Because for all these, to find out, I have used my own MATLAB codes. So I would have shown you how this particular diagrams have come. But it will look like what diagrams I have shown you. So I don't feel that any other difference it will make if I give the hands-on experience. That is why I did not. So next time, if I get the opportunity, I'll do that. So all the questions are welcome. So I would be happy to help you out.
Thank you so much, Kokila ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
It's an informative session and very good, ma'am. Actually, I hope participants have enjoyed this session. If you have any questions, you can ask now.
I'll be happy to answer the questions.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
As we tell it to the students, so please don't mind. Either they have understood completely or they have not understood anything. So please be in touch with me. If you have any queries, if you're unable to ask here, you can ask me. I'll give my contact. I will share with the students. So, ma'am, you have my phone number, you have my mail ID. You can always give it to them. So they can talk to me anytime. I can definitely help them out.
Sure, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. Kokila ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Radha Gupta ma'am, for giving the opportunity. Thank you all the participants for your patience listening. Thank you.
Now Sharmila can.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very good talk about the Gaussian model, ma'am. I think participants would have enjoyed that talk. On behalf of participants and our management, I wanted to thank you for giving your valuable time and thoughts to the session.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you. So I'll leave the session.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you can look into all the participants can look into my publications. It's there in ResearchGate. It's there in Google Scholar citations, in my Google Scholar citations. Any publication, if specifically is required, you can always contact me. Please go through it. If any particular method you want to understand, you want to have it, you can always ask me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
nice
ma'am. Participants, the next session will start at 2 o'clock. We'll break for lunch now. Thank you.
Yeah, participants can join by 1:50, 1:45 itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have put the feedback link in the chat box. Both the feedback links are the same.